Hey everyone, thanks for tapping into Constant Cadence with Matt. Today I'm going to do a quick review of a watch that I've had now for a couple of months, and it's really become one of my favorites. It's always in the rotation. It's um, it's a great weekend watch. I feel like it's a little bit more casual, but I do have two bracelets that I can wear. Actually, one's a strap, one's a bracelet, and um, and it can be worn in formal situations as well as situations on the weekend where you may be swimming or boating or pretty much anything. I'll talk to you a little bit about the specs. And I like to include what I call the sweet and the sour about a watch. So what I really like about it and what I really don't. And usually there's not a lot I don't like about the watches, particularly ones that I've purchased. And that may change as I review watches that are lent to me for review. But for now, I'm reviewing watches that I own, and I mostly like them, but there's usually something that's not that great about them, and I'll try and bring that as well. So let's get to the watch, and hopefully I'm focused in there. The watch is the MIDO TV Big Date. So let's just take a look at that. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. So it's just a nice, I got the dark dial, I guess I would call it charcoal. It's sort of a gradient color, so it's lighter towards the center of the dial and then gets darker as you get towards the edge. It's really nice in terms of how the dial looks. It's inviting in my opinion, and it does have some texture, so it has sort of horizontal striations within the dial that give it some dimension, a little bit of a 3D look. And the thing that really stood out to me is the big date. I'm getting a little bit older, so I sometimes have trouble seeing dates. Like I have a Zen 556. If you look at the date on that thing, I mean, I don't know how anybody can see that. Maybe when you're super young and your eyes are sharp, but I just love the big date. It's also a really cool complication, in my opinion, the big dates with two wheels typically that move in unison independently. They're in sync, obviously, but one wheel for, one digit and another for the other. So I think it's a neat complication and kind of a fun complication. I also like the strap on this watch. The orange rubber strap is very comfortable. It has a quick release system, and I'll show you how I swap. I'll do this on video between the orange strap and the steel bracelet. The bracelet also looks kind of cool. It has a very integrated look to it, although it's not quite an integrated bracelet. From a strap perspective, I really don't see myself using any other straps with this watch than the two that are provided, because it is almost an integrated bracelet look. I feel like they've designed it with the bracelet and or strap in mind, and it would be difficult, in my opinion, to really make, like a NATO strap or something like that work with this watch. But anyway, let's get into the review, and I hope you enjoy, and I'll catch up with you afterwards. All right, let's get into the watch. Here's the face. You see that nice big date. That's a beautiful dial, super legible, um, with minimal branding, which I like. You can see the exhibition case back. Both sapphires, front and back, are sapphire, and two times anti-reflective coating. So get a nice look into that dial. The strap, which is what I prefer to wear. I'll show you the bracelet later. But the strap has a nice pin buckle that's branded, and it also has texture on the back. If you go swimming or you're doing something where you're sweating, it's really helpful to keep things dry and keep some good airflow going. You can see the movement. We'll get into that when we look at the back of the watch. And nice crown guards with a screw down crown that I think is rather unique. I like to wear this watch with sort of a braided leather cord that has a cool steel coupler. And I just think it looks good with the dial and then the additional flash of steel. So That's how it looks on the wrist. And yeah, I think it's a good looker. Um, if you look, a little bit more at the dial, I mentioned it does have an interesting color. I chose the gray or darker color. They also have like a green and a blue, but it's a gradient, so it's black at the edge almost, and then it gets lighter towards the center of the watch. And the black on the edge, I think, is neat because it matches up with the black Rehat, which displays a minute track. And the big data is obviously what stands out here. Nice big date, easily legible, and there are no numerals. It's just indices to show the different points on the dial, which I think is nice because it's a modern watch and and nice and clean. You can see here the screw down crown has interesting knurling. It's just kind of linear notches cut into the crown, which I like. And I love the crown guards too. The case is mostly brushed, but on the bezel, there is a polished chamfered edge, which you can see gives it a nice little accent. And at 12 o'clock on the bezel, there is one single pip that has loom. And, there are a lot of sweet things about this watch, but the one sour thing, I guess, would be, the loom is it's just more or less aligned with the indices. And then there's the one pip at 12 o'clock to accommodate the big date at 12 o'clock. The lug width is 22 millimeters, and the case is 40 millimeters wide, but it's also 11 and a half millimeters thick. So it is pretty slim and wears quite well. So I think the dimensions are really cool, and definitely loving that square dial. In terms of the movement, here we see the exhibition case back. There are 4 screws holding it in place. It's called the Caliber 80. It's MIDO's take on an ETA movement. It's been heavily customized. The big date is kind of the star of the show, but it also has things like a titanium balance spring, which helps with magnetism. And it has 80 hours of power reserve. And some people don't care about power reserve, but I have a bunch of watches, and it's nice if they can last a little bit longer and be mostly wound when I actually wind up putting it on the wrist. I think the exhibition case back looks really nice here. The rotor has been done up a little bit with a little bit of branding, and you can easily see this is a Caliber 80. The water resistance is great. It's 10 bar, which is what you want for swim. So moving on to kind of lookalikes here, we see the Patek Philippe Aquanaut on orange bracelet, which there are undeniable similarities, especially with the case, but there are no numerals. There's no subdial. The date's completely different. And a lot of these other aesthetics, I think, are fairly popular these days. So I don't think it's an homage, but certainly similar in appearance. I mentioned there is a bracelet, also a steel bracelet. So here's the quick release system. Really easy to take the strap off and the bracelet off for that matter. The bracelet's a little trickier because, it's not as flexible as rubber, obviously, but I'll do my best here to show you, kind of the, I guess it's like a pincer technique where you kind of load up both ends of the spring. And if you can figure out how to do that, it takes a little while. The bracelet pops in nicely. So, and then this is kind of like the other side here, and boom. Okay. So it's a nice bracelet, and it's got some polished center links there, and it's upside down as always. I got to go back and do it again. Arg. And there you have it. The MIDO Multi-Fort TV Big Date. You can get this watch. I think retail is around $1,100 or $1,200. You should be able to get this watch for about $800 or $900, depending on the relationship you have with your AD, and or if you prefer to use marketplaces like Joma Shop, etc., which, you know, is sometimes may be viewed as compromising on the warranty, but you can get great deals. This is a very reliable watch. I love the brand MIDO. If you haven't checked them out, you should, because they have great GMT watches. They have great dive watches, and they're a part of the Swatch group. But I think a really unique part of the Swatch group that hasn't caught on so much in the United States. So they're very popular in South America. MIDO, and midar is the verb, means to measure, and MIDO means I measure. So I think that that has caught on in Latin-speaking countries because it's a watch, and of course, when you wear a watch and look at a watch, you are measuring time. I think it's really great. I think it definitely is something that I reach for more on weekends and casual situations. It's nice and cool from a retro perspective. We talked a little bit about the Patek Philippe resemblance, but it is by no means an homage. I think it's different enough. And the orange colors with the straps and things like that is cropping up everywhere, even on like Android watches and things like that. So I think that's a pretty popular trend, and it has been for a little while. And I like the orange a ton. I like it better than the metal bracelet, but the steel bracelet. But I will use the steel bracelet if I'm wearing this watch in a more formal situation, like maybe out to dinner. But overall, a really great watch, and I would recommend to anybody to purchase this, and you'll get, you know, many years of enjoyment out of it. So I hope you enjoyed the review, and thanks again for tapping into Constant Cadence with Matt. I hope your dial makes you smile.